Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Game Changer. I'm Mariam Zia. Tonight we will delve into Pakistan's economic outlook as we are moving towards economic stability. The latest figure from State Bank of Pakistan and international institutions including IMF show a positive outlook. Foreign exchange reserves have surged $9.466 billion as of September 2024, and when we talk about remittances, they are expected to surpass $28 billion. With inflation dropping to its, of course, lowest level since October 2021, Pakistan is edging towards economic stability. And we are also moving towards the IMF program, as IMF is preparing to discuss a $7 billion bailout package later this month. In today's program, we will be talking about what to expect from this bailout package and how this is going to be leading Pakistan towards economic stability, and what will be the challenges when we talk about, of course, economic outlook of Pakistan. To discuss this and more, we have a very eminent panel of economists with us today. We are joined in the studios by Dr. Usman Chohan, who is advisor on economy, CAS. Welcome to the program, which is a think tank. Welcome to the program. We're also joined by Mr. Humayun Balshami, who is President, Pakistan Economic Forum. Welcome to the program. We're also joined by Mr. Ali Salman, who is Executive Director, Prime. Welcome to the program. Dr. Salman, let me start with you with this positive news that, of course, after a while, Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves have surpassed, of course, are showing a positive trend and have surpassed a limit of $9.466 billion. How do you see, do you think this is a first step towards economic stability, and of course with the context of recent hurdles that Pakistan have been facing, how do you view this?
It's an excellent question you've asked, because reserves have been a concern for many emerging markets, including for Pakistan. And over the last 2 years, we've faced a crunch collectively in the world in terms of the ownership of reserves. And there's been a big draw of reserves, which has been energy prices. So if you correlate the declining energy prices in the world, you can expect that the demands on the reserves won't be so high. And at the same time, remittances are going up again, so further inflows in our reserves should be expected. So overall, it's not just that our reserves are at a initially good level now, but that we can expect them to continue to rise over the near term.
In your opinion, Dr. Usman, what were the key measures that lead to this, of course, first step towards achieving this number of reserves? Well, because we know that we have had dwindling, of course, reserves for quite some time now.
Yes, you're absolutely right. The set of measures that our government had to take were actually quite difficult. They were a difficult pill to swallow. For example, raising the interest rate to an astronomical level. It was unpleasant, but it had to be done. And now it's being lowered gradually, perhaps too gradually. And at the same time, there was a big hit taken by businesses in order for that to happen. At the same time, we were trying to maintain the modicum of fiscal stability. At the same time, we were in discussions with the IMF. So fighting on many fronts to avert a very difficult scenario which many emerging markets faced, and I think we've done a good job on that front.
Right. About the upcoming meeting with IMF, how significant, in your opinion, is this meeting for Pakistan to, of course, secure this extended fund facility, and especially when we talk about the looming debt crisis?
Oh, it's an excellent question, because our discussions with the IMF have been premised on very severe stipulations. They have asked a lot from us, and we have taken reform very seriously, and we have gone about it in multiple directions. Particularly the federal government has taken a big chunk, and it has faced resistance every step of the way domestically, because the consumer and the ordinary person has also suffered tremendously. That is the background in which this next conversation will happen. The assumptions that the IMF has had are not up to date with how inflation is coming down, how the foreign governments, how foreign economies might be going into recession, how energy prices are going down. The world context is changing, and so that will influence very much how this conversation happens. But I believe that we should stick to the essence of the program, to shore up our fiscal position so that ultimately you and I both want that we never go to the IMF
Right,
again.
and that was my next question, because whenever we discuss economy, we keep on discussing about the long-term plans and how this is the 25th time that Pakistan is looking towards IMF, and the recent statement from Finance Minister also states that this is do or die situation for Pakistan when we talk about this upcoming meeting with IMF. So how long are we going to be relying on this, and how do you think that this loan is going to be playing a part in maybe moving a baby step towards economic stability?
Yes, well, I ideally would not see this as a baby step, but in fact that we take a major step towards reform. Because what is being asked of the people in terms of energy costs, in terms of inflation, in terms of the cost of living crisis, all of this cannot be considered a baby step. It's actually very demanding. So what I want is that the IMF wants a diversified portfolio of recipients. They also don't want to lend exclusively to Pakistan, Argentina and Ukraine. They want a bigger variety. And Pakistan also wants to have not just emergency funding, but also investment and business activity and a stable environment. So in the end, both sides want the same thing, that things are okay, but there's not heavy reliance of one or the other. So I see that happening if the global economy has a modicum of stability, and if we continue on the reform path, it's certainly achievable.
Right. Talk about economic growth. Trade deficit is one of the issues that Pakistan has been facing, and there is of course surge in trade deficit by 19.7% in July when we look at the figures July 2024 due to increased imports. How do you think we are going to address this issue, Dr. Usman?
This is an excellent point, because it is not easy to solve this imbalance. Our exports fall behind our imports by a long shot. Over the last 3 years, you have seen an engineered decrease in our imports. It was done on purpose, and unfortunately, the way our production mechanisms work, we require imports to drive our exports. There's capital imports for industry and whatnot. We do need things from abroad to send things abroad. This is a connection that we have to keep in mind. If you start to remove the controls that you have put on imports, you will naturally see this lagging demand. People have been requiring imports for a long time. That has to be done at some point. And at the same time, our exports are not focusing the same level of quality as well as quantity to compete in world markets or to find niches, which requires market research. A lot of that hard legwork
And
has to be
skilled
done.
workers.
And skilled workers to work on that, as well as skilled management to drive that. And part of the gap can be filled by remittances, but remittances can be cyclical. There is also a political element to that. There is also the integration of your migrants into the local society, so they may not need to send back as much in the long run. So you have to find gaps around this, and the best way to do it, of course, I think is the indigenization of production, so you don't need as much from abroad. Now, some parts of your import bill are required for now, for example, your energy. But if you rework the architecture of energy and transport in your society, you won't actually need that much from outside.
Right, but at the same time, of course, we do need that. So what kind of strategies, in your opinion, are required to keep pace of exports with the imports?
Well, above all, I think good market research is required, because we don't actually know where our highest demand abroad might be. The second is working on quality control in our products. The third is on the energy. The cost of energy for our producers is extortionary. They actually cannot compete on the cost structure. And the fourth is on investing in labor market, so improving the quality of labor market. These four things, if you do, you already get a leg up in emerging market category for exports.
Right, and of course, the federal government had recently reduced the prices of course, fuel as well. Do you think this is going to be boosting confidence of potential investors? And in your opinion, how significant are such moves for attracting investors in different sectors in Pakistan?
It is possible that the investor community considers the energy cost or the fuel cost reductions, but the biggest advantage of reducing the fuel cost is on the consumer. And we need to provide as much relief to the consumer right now as possible, because as you have extensively discussed, the tax rates, the energy tariffs, and all of this impact consumers in devastating ways. A very good way. You see, as inflation has increased, the whole world has suffered inflation. The whole world has started to understand and build narratives around inflation that are very interesting. The American media has now called this a country buster. Inflation busts countries. And so fighting inflation should be our primary thing. We are benefiting from a reduction, but as was correctly discussed by my dear colleague, Dr. Salman, it's the slowing of the rate. It's still increasing. So inflation remains a challenge. So bringing the fuel costs down in a measured way eases it on consumer, and we don't want any countries anywhere to bust. We want them to be resilient. In that context, we have to look at the fuel price reduction and any other easements that make it easier
Right,
for
and
them.
when we talk about different sectors, of course, agriculture remains one of the important sectors in Pakistan's economy. But with the recent taxation reforms in agriculture sector, how do you think this is going to be impacting, especially the small farmers, and what needs to be done to address the challenges that they are going to be facing?
Yeah, this is an excellent and complex question. Our target above all should be that agricultural yields rise. That's our fundamental target, because we have a fixed amount of land. We can irrigate, we can have better technology and all that, but we have a finite endowment of land. And how we make use of that will change given two factors. One, the increase in our population. So we produce an enormous amount of wheat in Pakistan, but yet it is also becoming insufficient because our population is increasing. And the second is urbanization, because urbanization is pushing into prime agricultural land. Even in Islamabad, you're pushing out the good stuff. This is making it hard. At the same time, agriculture is a very problematic sector historically. Many people who had agriculture in West Pakistan were unionists basically, and that unionist legacy of intervening in politics has been terrible for us. So even 75 years later, you're talking about taxing agriculture as if we became independent from the British yesterday. It is quite ridiculous. So the politics of agriculture in this country are very, very acrimonious, and dealing with it until we came to a situation like we have now, we weren't even able to raise the subject.
Right. Dr. Usman, when we talk about the signs of revival that Pakistan's economy is showing, and of course Pakistan is expected to show increased growth in coming years, how do you think that the government should ensure that this growth is inclusive? It doesn't benefit the wealthy but the lower class as well.
Excellent point about inclusivity. I think that what we have to keep in mind is that we are still a very stratified society. So as long as you can reach out to the bottom rungs economically, socioeconomically, you'll be doing a good job. In Pakistan, that involves infrastructure spending, because there are parts of Pakistan that are quite remote psychologically as well as infrastructurally. So reaching out to them adds to inclusivity. There is a very strong cultural gender element in this too, because more than 50%, if not exactly 50%, are women, and their labor force participation is still falling short by world standards. Take any metric. And they have so much potential, especially because it's a young country. So the youth inclusivity, then the youth plus women inclusivity is already one big factor. Plus disparities within regions have to be addressed, in the best ways through infrastructure. Already you would have a much more inclusive economy.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Usman Chohan, for joining us in today's program.